Hi, I'm Greg Schaffer, and welcome to episode 44, season 7 of the Virtual CISO Moment. Today, we have Chris Carter. He is the chairman and CEO of Approyo. Chris, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Greg. I'm excited.
So I'd like to start as we usually start. I'd like to hear about your history, how you got started in tech, what led you to that, and then what led you to what you've been doing for a long time as far as SAP support goes, and maybe even kind of sprinkle in there a little bit about what SAP is to those of us who maybe aren't too familiar with it.
You got it. Well, I started my career back in the 1980s. I know some of the listeners may not even realize that there were a 1980s. I graduated high school in 1987. I left for Georgia Tech with a Commodore VIC-20 and an Apple IIe. Yes. Two dinosaurs nowadays, everybody. I get it. I know. Heck, I was in school so late that they gave us the big floppies back in the day that we would use inside of our computers back in the day. My first job was actually as an intern at Coca-Cola, which is kitty corner to our campus. And I started working on their R2 environment back in the day, which was a massive mainframe, punch cards and activities. And I was lucky enough that I was working there one day when the team from SAP came in to talk to them about migrating up to, at that point in time, which was SAP R3, which was on the x86. And I said, yes, I want to be a part of that. And so I started working for SAP America, went through their training. And SAP is an application that companies use to run their entire organization. It is HR, it's finance, it's warehouse management, it's supply chain. It is, and nowadays it's everything, including AI and artificial intelligence rolled into systems that they can use on anything from their phones and iPads or basic desktops. And it's something, and the way it's so important for me and why I'm so excited to be on this show is we have so much security wrapped around SAP that literally every day I'm talking to CISOs and I'm talking to my mid-market folks and where our weak indicator about what's going on in SAP, what the changes are, what's coming down, because there's a lot of changes within our security suites within it. So that's where it all started from. And that's where I am started and now where I am today.
So what led you to go independent? Because you've been running Approyo for about 14 years now, right?
Yes.
I
loved being at SAP, and I traveled the globe on their dime. I did a lot of projects overseas. I did projects all throughout the United States, and it started getting to a point where it got so busy with the migrations from the R2 environments to the R3s that they were looking for partners. And I said, well, I can do this. So back in 1992, I believe it was, I started my first company, started going through, and I was working directly with them. I did get burnt out in the late or early 2000s, kind of took a little time off and started working for a unicorn startup company out of New York. But I got brought back. A vice president of SAP, who I'm really good friends with, who actually lives about 15 minutes from me, brought over a bottle of scotch, sat outside by my fire pit and said, look, man, we need you back in here. There's this thing called HANA coming out. We need people like you to help me. I need you to help me understand this. By the time that bottle was finished at about 2:30 in the morning, it was already the morning in Germany. We started getting on our cell phones and we started calling people over in Germany that we both knew. And I ended up getting on a plane literally 24 hours later, got over to Waldorf, Germany. And I started sitting down with the team about this HANA database, this in-memory database. This was going to be the future of SAP. And I hadn't been in the ecosystem now for 2 years. I left it behind. I wanted to decompress. All I wanted to do was do sales and marketing for this startup company and help get them established in the United States and throughout the Americas. Oh, did I make an interesting decision, because SAP was blowing up. We were very fortunate. I came back at the right time. Dr. Hasselplattner, who was the founder, one of the original founders from IBM of SAP, took us under his wing and gave us one of the first SAP startup focused program partnerships. So that little piece of paper got me in the door of everybody. And then all of a sudden I was off to the races, Greg. I was talking about HANA, cloud, before artificial intelligence was there, security, how things get melded together. And it just, boom, it went from there. And I haven't looked back since. So it's been 14 years now to the day.
So, in complete transparency, when we first started talking about prep for the podcast, it's like, we have so many acronyms in our industry, and I started to see like SAP. It's like I didn't see it as a company at first. It for whatever reason it didn't trigger with me, and I'm thinking of like some sort of what is this thing, and I'm looking up and I'm doing these chats with ChatGPT and not understanding what they're talking about. It's like Germany and this and that and everything else until the light bulb went on over my head. Which prompts me to ask this question: SAP shops that will use that software, or really any larger scale enterprise resource management ERP. What does ERP stand for?
Enterprise resource planning.
Planning. Thank you. I was off on the P for a minute.
All good.
Is this more typically for larger, like Fortune 500 type companies, or do smaller businesses use that?
Oh, geez. You can scale tremendously. Sure, you've got the $1 billion boys out there, the Exxons and the Chevrons and the Budweisers and the Miller Breweries, Briggs and Strattons and all those sorts. But I also have companies that are $10 million in revenue that are running SAP software. And the great thing that SAP did is they realized that the mid-market was the most important area to focus on. And so they really built out and scaled the mid-market, because I'm a mid-market company and we use it. And I've got lots of mid-market companies that use it, that we know exactly the pains that they're going through. How is their financing to be taken care of? How is their warehouse managed? The smaller company of $10 million oil and gas company, we run and manage their entire landscape for them. They don't have to bring in somebody. So we take care of their security, their internet. We take care of their SAP. We take care of their users. Things that they don't have to do, because why should they have to scale to the size of a bigger company when they can still maintain who they are at 10 million or 20 million, a couple $100 million, and they still get the same benefits as somebody who's $6 billion in revenue, $20 billion in revenue.
So these systems can definitely impact and store a lot of sensitive, confidential information for the business, or everything that they do. I mean, anything from like your traditional PII stuff to intellectual property. If you're talking about planning, it's like certain things that you're trying to do. I'm wondering a couple of things, just trying to put on my security hat here. First of all, what are like one or a couple of top cybersecurity concerns that someone who has a company that has SAP in their environment, and is it something that is business size specific? Like, are there different concerns for the mid-size versus the really mega large corporations, or are the concerns sort of across the board?
That's a great question, because security to me means different things to different organizations. When you're an SMB-based company, you are looking for literally lock, stock, and barrel, everything to be secured down, especially with your SAP environment, which is the company of record for them. You don't want somebody getting in from the outside. So you want to make sure that that layer is locked down. We're very fortunate. We built a tool many years ago that companies like, called Overwatch. Not only does it manage and run the systems, it monitors bad agents trying to come in from the outside world. We monitor all the ports that SAP has to run on, because we know what ports those are. We monitor all the AI ports and all the AI connections, because you'd be surprised sometimes. Some of these bad actors get in through a third party and a fourth party, and then all of a sudden they're inside that network. And to get into your network, look at some of the ones that happened a couple of years ago, CrowdStrikes and Microsoft and others.
Right.
So we're constantly monitoring everything that has to do with the SAP landscape. We are proactively and using predictive analytics to monitor that landscape outward. Now, we're also taking the effect that once we get to that portion of it, no matter if it's your infrastructure, if it's your cloud, if it's your network gear, whatever the case it may be, or even your M365s and O365, making sure that those are secure across there. So from a SMB level, it's literally everything. Now, once we get into the enterprise space and we get into some of these companies, They have multiple tools and they have multiple applications that they're trying to utilize to maintain and monitor those activities. I'm a firm believer that you never have too much security. I believe that our tool helps, but they can have other tools that stack on top of that, and we work together hand in hand. Having security must be the front of every CIO if they're not a CISO in the organization, and what they're doing with their organization. Because once that data is compromised, now you're in a whole host of trouble. And that's why with predictive analytics and now the AI day-to-day activities, you've got to make sure that you are locked in, you're secured, and your data is going to be safe and secure in its own box, not for the rest of the world to be able to understand and see.
I'm going to get to AI in just a second, but I want to put on my CISO hat for a moment.
Yeah.
And of course, I need to present stuff to the board of directors because that's just one of the things that I do. And I need to do it in like a really concise, short manner. So what are a couple of the KRIs, key risk indicators, that as far as metrics go? Because that metrics is a 4-letter word when it comes to CISOs. It's like we never know whether the right metrics and all that. But we want to try to tell the story. We don't want to overwhelm them with like number of packets dropped. I'm kind of like not great with the idea of like doing like heat maps anymore. I mean, we have to do it. That's what they expect. But you know, they understand the red, yellow, green type colors. But that's kind of like been overused and underutilized and doesn't really tell the story. So for SAP monitoring, what are a couple of the KRIs that I would need to be talking to with regards to the board of directors? And is the reporting specifically from your system something that would help the CISOs do that?
Well, that's a great question because we take on the same responsibility of what SAP does. And yes, we use green, yellow, red, just like everybody else.
Which is good as a communications tool because, you know, it's easy to get the story out with that. I'm not against that.
No, and they're used to it, so they understand it. For us, key risk indicators are those action items that come out every single day from an SAP environment. How's the traffic coming within the environment itself? Where's the traffic coming from? What is the data that's being utilized and how is it being taken care of? We, from a monitoring standpoint, we're constantly looking at the landscape itself. We're constantly monitoring the application itself. How is the application working? We're constantly monitoring what are the touch points into the SAP environment as well as out, because we got to go bi-directional with the ports. And so then those activities are constantly being monitored. And if we start seeing yellow activities, a human being starts getting on those. Green, we've got our tools for it. Red, something happened. There was an issue that happened. I think it was about 6 months ago. SAP had a vulnerability that SAP didn't know about. We caught something on our side at one of our customers, and we sent that vulnerability into SAP and said, hey, you need to look at this. We found this. You need to get this patched immediately. We were able to hold off bad actors on our side for our customer, and then we transpose that into all of our customers because we mandate that they use our tool while we're taking care of them. SAP found it, and literally within 48 hours, they had a patch for every single SAP system. That's 418,000 customers. So you have to have that. You have to have that mindset. That's why I like having conversations with CISOs and with people in security, because I'm always thinking about it as the top of mind. It's got to be in the front. If it's not the first thing that you're thinking of, it better be 1B rather than 1A.
So I think that's perfect, but it leads into the next question, sort of, because I said I wanted to get back to AI. I'm going to put this into two buckets. So artificial intelligence obviously has become like the big thing the last couple of years.
Buzzword.
So the two buckets of the buzzword are how has AI affected the threat environment for SAP implementations, and how is AI being leveraged to understand and mitigate the threat environment for SAP deployments?
Great A and B question. So how is it being leveraged? We leverage it every day from a monitoring and an application standpoint. We want to make sure that it's being predictive with the entire landscape. We want to know when when you're going to get databases filling up, when you're seeing spikes in traffic in certain ports, when you're seeing activity going up. And so again, green, yellow, red, we monitor all those with the tool. The tool comes back instantaneous, real time leverage of those activities. And then from a day-to-day activity, we, along with SAP, also they have their own tool called Joule, which takes on activities inside SAP's tenants. Because now with S4, we monitor certain components of that landscape. They monitor certain components of those landscapes. And we try to talk with each other and to be able to make sure that the artificial intelligence activities are real artificial intelligence. Don't tell me it's just some tool that sits there and it's watching the heartbeat of your landscape. No, what is it really going deep? Is it talking to the ports? Is it pinging the ports? Is it going through the application database? Is it gauging the variation of the database itself? How full it is, how low it is? Is it monitoring all the traffic coming through? So between the two areas, and I will say this up front, I am a huge opponent. I love proponent. I believe that we should be monitoring all traffic coming in and out of any landscape to make sure that the vulnerabilities, once you start to see an X% of spike in traffic, what is going on with that environment? Because what we're doing is, yes, we're sending API calls, but those bad actors in those foreign countries, they're the ones that are continuously trying to hack, and they've got some pretty darn good people. We have to continue to keep up with our tools. I know they're using their tools for bad action activities. So you got to continuously be up to date and monitoring and supporting and going across the entire landscape on that.
So, and it's probably different though, depending upon industries, I'd say though, right? In some ways.
Some ways, yes. Like for our financial industry companies, we have to be very cognizant of, because they do a lot of in and out traffic with things like ATMs.
Right.
They're doing wire transfers and stuff. So we're being very cognizant of what ports and how those ports are being utilized. And that's a big thing for us. We are basically a port manager. So it may take literally a nanosecond for that transaction to happen. But within that nanosecond, that packet is being validated within that system to make sure that it's not a whatever port packet, that it's not some spoof or some other activity.
So yeah, you mentioned financial services, and in particular, I have a pretty deep financial services background, having been CISO, vCISO for several banks and credit unions. They're very mature from a cybersecurity standpoint. I know you guys work with an awful lot of different industries, and I have to ask you, and you don't have to answer if you don't want to anger anybody, but if you could, what is an example? What are the least mature industries out there, cybersecurity wise, that you've seen, and do you have a reason as to why? Maybe
retail, actually. And the reason retail is because they have a lot of old archaic systems. I've got a retail customer that refuses to do upgrades, and they're still using some green screens in their warehouses for transportation and logistics. And
a lot of people don't know what green screen means. I mean,
I know you are of a certain age.
Yeah.
And it's just these retail organizations, some of them have not upgraded their warehouses, their manufacturing. They're getting things brought in from China and Taiwan and all they do is look at a piece of paper and they say, okay, yep, I counted 56, and they send it off to their warehouse, and it starts going on this funnel with their hanger system and all that. But they're not scanning and QR. Now, the ones who do that and are on SAP or on Oracle or JD, whoever the competition, the ones that are monitoring and maintaining those and aren't on the blue screen or the green screen of death, as we used to call them back in the day, that's great, because now you're up to date. You know you're not going to necessarily get hacked. Those old school green screens, my God, the upkeep they have to keep on those is just, old Infor systems, for God's sake. Old EWMs that are out there, warehouse management systems, some of those old Infors, they're just not updating them in the manner that they should be anymore. And I apologize to Infor. I know your tool, your newest tool, is a good tool, but some of your older stuff, companies aren't updating them in the retail space or even other areas because A, no, I don't need to, and B, they don't have the money for it in the capital, and they just don't understand how vulnerable that is, excuse me.
Well, and then you start accumulating all this technical debt that eventually it comes due.
It all comes due.
And I think a lot of times businesses, they become surprised by that. It's just like, well, we have to spend how much to upgrade? Well, if you had been incrementally doing this over time, it would have been fine. Otherwise, you're kind of like going off a cliff here. And any advice as to how to change that mindset with folks?
Keep updating it. Keep updating it. You're going to have to put that into your budget. I've got one customer that I'm working with right now. They have to update 2 applications within the SAP ecosystem. One is going end of life, and one is that so old and so archaic, they're going to have to hire one individual to just write code and monitor everything for that application rather than doing these upgrades that they should have done or putting in the new module that comes along with it from SAP. Instead of spending a few $100,000 here, they could have had that all broken down over years. They didn't do it, and now their C-suite is just barking up a storm about the amounts and how long it's going to take and what it's going to take. They have to do it. End of life is end of life, and that's one of the things that SAP is doing right now. You got end of life here on the core ECC. You've got end of life on all these module applications. And if you don't move, you can't move to the next one. And oh, by the way, you're going to get hit with a 40% increase on your maintenance fee.
And better to take the small hits than the big hits as you're going forward.
Yes.
Which leads me to an unscripted question.
Please.
That I didn't even think about until you were talking. I'm gonna. I don't know if anybody else has asked you this or not, but I'm going to anyway. Over your left shoulder is a Rocky Balboa quote.
Yes.
And I'm wondering I couldn't read it. I expanded it on my screen, but I'm wondering if that is the keep moving forward quote from Rocky Balboa. Is it?
It absolutely is.
So for those who are unfamiliar with the quote, you can Google it, but it's one of my favorite inspirational quotes. And basically the premise is like, you're going to get hit, you're going to get knocked down. That's life. That's just the way it is. But in order for you to win, you got to keep getting up and keep moving forward, because that's how winning is done. That's how the quote ends. So from SAP implementation and cybersecurity in general, how would Rocky's words apply?
Oh, that fits perfectly into 3 of my clients were in a data center that got breached up in Canada. A bad actor got in through a VMware based utility, found through the network, and all of a sudden started taking out systems left and right. They basically hijacked them and were looking all for money. We came in immediately and said, well, that's not our part of our business. You knew that going into it. We were hired by those organizations to maintain. So what we did is we stepped in. This is how I would spend literally, I was up 36 hours a day, take a nap, get back up 24, get back in, keep moving forward. You get hacked, you get applications being down, you get security vulnerabilities, whatever it takes. Get up and keep helping, keep moving forward. From my organization side, just keep helping, keep getting up. Get up off the hell. And the bottom of my floor here, I had an air mattress with a pillow so I could take a 2 and 3 hour nap while we were resetting up their systems. Just keep doing don't do everything the same way over and over again. As Einstein said, if you keep doing things the same way, you're never going to get successful. But just keep moving forward and try to keep helping as a CISO or as a CIO or anybody. Keep moving that forward. You're going to fail. Your applications aren't going to work. You're going to have the ROI is not going to be successful. Your technology, you picked the wrong technology because somebody sold you a bag of goods, or your CEO said, do that. And you're going, I can't do that. Well, figure out why you can't, and especially in SAP right now, we have to go through these massive data cleansing exercises. These companies can't take all this. I've got a client with 37 years of EDI data, Greg. 37 years, basically.
Why?
Thank you. That is the exact question I kept asking them. And then the people
What
that
is the
started,
business reason for it? What is the business exposure? What is the risk exposure for? What's the return on
oh,
that risk? Usually the exposure is huge and the return is like zilch. You know, it's like, well,
yeah,
why?
archive, delete.
Yeah, but I think that sometimes people get a comfort level with too much information, and it's a false sense of security. No
All
pun
sense of
intended.
security right there.
But I think that's an important piece of advice for folks, not just in the SAP world, but everything in security, really, just about anything in career stuff is life too. It's like none of this stuff is easy. And to quote another movie from A League of Our Own, if it was easy, everybody would do it.
It's easy,
It's like
everybody would be doing it.
there's a lot of hard stuff in information security and cybersecurity, and it's you're going to fail. You're going to get knocked backwards. And so it can be very stressful, particularly if you're like one of those like me, like, type A, I want to succeed all the time and all that, but I understand that I can't. But with all of this stress and all that comes the need to decompress from all of that. And I'm a big proponent of explaining to folks that you need to decompress in a positive manner, in a healthy manner. I have done both healthy and unhealthy before for me. But what's one of the things, Chris, you do to decompress from the stresses of not only what we do in our industry, but being a solo, or being rather an entrepreneur?
That's a great question. And I love that you asked that of all of your guests. It's one of the things that made me push to ask to be on your show, because I do a couple of things. First of all, I travel with my wife and daughters. We've got a great relationship. One of my favorite trips was going to the Dead President's Mountain, Mount Rushmore, during COVID, just the four of us. And we had some of the greatest conversations that we'd ever had in our lives. And that's really led to our relationships growing and blossoming as a family. I love golf, hence the Ryder Cup right here for Whistling Straits. The Ryder Cup starts today. And finally, I love bourbons and whiskeys. I've got on the other side of my wall here, on the back side of Rocky, I probably have over 100 different variations of whiskeys that I love to share with friends and family, and we bring them all together. We come out here, and I love to share with them and be able to build them an old fashioned. It's a Wisconsin drink mostly, but people do like a good old fashioned. And those are some of the things that I like to do, between traveling with my family, going off and seeing great places, having a great golf game with good friends, and then having a great old fashioned afterwards.
Very cool. So what kind of future plans you got coming down the road here? Have you upgraded your Commodore VIC-20 yet?
Yes, I have. I'm literally sitting here with 2, 3, 5, 7 screens going on right now, and none of them are attached to a Commodore. But there's a company that is bringing back the old Commodore VIC-20, and it's not Commodore itself, of course, but the old Commodore VIC-20 is coming back out and about. It'll be interesting to see what it looks like.
The Commodore PET was the first. I've mentioned this before here. Commodore PET was the first screen-based computer that I used. I didn't own one. It was in high school. And we had a Trash 80 as well too. But
yes.
Yeah, I one of my dream goals is I want to find a Commodore PET that's working. And actually, I put it right up on the cabinet right behind me here. So
that is great.
So, all right, no upgrade of the VIC-20, although you might, I suspect you might buy one of the newer variants. But what else you got coming up?
You know what? I'm now 56 this year. I'm starting into the twilight of my career. So my goal right now is to try to help others be successful. I'm trying to help others come up the ladder of life, no matter if it's in technology, if it's in life, if it's in my faith, or if it's in my book writing. I'm down to 17 books now that I've written. Wow. Very blessed to be a 4-time bestseller. I'm trying to help others go. And then sooner than later, I'm just going to say, you know what? I'm pushing all my chips into somebody else. I'm going to go spend more time with my incredible wife, who gave me the latitude to travel all around the world and help customers. Now it's time I get to spend that quality time with her. And that's what my goal is. The companies are doing great. I love what I do. There's opportunities for growth, and there's opportunity for our staff. But at the end of the day, I do think it's time to start looking at spending a little bit more quality time with my wife, and wait for those grandchildren to be born someday.
I'm with you. I've had similar conversations recently. I'm 58 right now and been thinking about those sorts of things. But then again, there's also the part of me, it's like, I really love what I do. And it's like, how can I clone myself? I haven't quite figured it out yet. So
try owning 4 companies. It's my days. It's crazy between 3 technology companies and owning a bar, pub, restaurant with my wife, and then writing books and traveling. Yeah, I'm starting to. That's why I have no hair and you have a great head of hair, Greg.
Slow down and enjoy life. It's like I tell my wife. Amen. It's like I'm just so happy that I get to do life with her. It's just you learn as you grow older, like what are the most important things in life. We always think like early on our careers like the most important. It is, and it's important to give back. And I'm glad that you are doing that too, because if you have a heart of a servant, I've said this many times, you're always going to be successful. So
should try.
Chris, thank you so much for joining me today. I think this is the first time I ever got a chance to talk about my favorite Rocky quote, which is actually one of my favorite inspirational quotes. Love always talking about old computers. Yeah, those old little 5 1/4 floppies. It's like you notched it and you could flip it around, right?
Yes, you could.
You could double the density on that thing, and or double the sides rather, and it wasn't foolproof. And sometimes it screwed up, and you lost your data. And it's just like, well, then you learned about backup. So
yes, exactly, the backup.
But listen, Chris, it's been such a pleasure having you on. I appreciate you taking the time and to fill in for a little gap I had in the schedule. So thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Greg. Appreciate you.
And everybody, stay secure.